Roman Reigns is stepping into Raw tonight and the atmosphere is electric because everyone knows something massive is about to go down. The Tribal Chief has been walking a razor-thin line between loyalty and betrayal, keeping his bonds with CM Punk and the Usos intact while the wrestling world watches with suspicious eyes. Every handshake feels calculated, every word sounds rehearsed, and the fans can sense that an explosion is coming. Tonight could be the night where everything he's built comes crashing down, or where he proves once again why he's the most dominant force in professional wrestling. Before we dive deeper into what might unfold, make sure you hit that subscribe button because you won't want to miss any of the action we break down here. The real question burning in everyone's mind is whether Reigns can actually maintain these fragile alliances or if his true nature will surface when the pressure reaches its peak. He's been playing chess while everyone else plays checkers, manipulating situations to his advantage and keeping his rivals guessing about his next move. The Usos have stood by his side through thick and thin, but family bonds in wrestling have a history of shattering under the weight of championship gold and personal ambition. CM Punk represents another volatile element in this equation because he's never been one to tolerate disrespect or manipulation for long. Punk has his own agenda and his own pride, and mixing that with Reigns' calculated approach to relationships creates a powder keg waiting for a spark. What makes this situation even more intense is how Reigns has perfected the art of seeming genuine while potentially plotting something sinister beneath the surface. He'll look you in the eye, shake your hand, and speak words that sound like brotherhood, but there's always that lingering doubt about whether he means any of it. The wrestling universe has learned not to trust the Tribal Chief at face value because he's turned on allies before when it suited his purposes. His track record speaks volumes about his willingness to sacrifice anyone and everyone to maintain his position at the top of the mountain. The Usos might think their blood connection protects them, but Reigns has shown that his version of family comes with conditions and expectations that can be revoked at any moment. The history between these men adds layers upon layers of complexity to what's unfolding right now. Reigns didn't just wake up one day and decide to form these alliances randomly. Every move he's made has been strategic, calculated to advance his position and eliminate threats before they fully materialize. When he brought the Usos into his inner circle, it wasn't just about family loyalty. It was about having enforcers who could do his bidding without question. When he aligned himself with CM Punk, it wasn't because he suddenly developed respect for the straight-edge superstar, it was because Punk represented a useful tool that could be wielded against common enemies. Understanding this mindset is crucial to predicting what might happen next because Reigns doesn't do anything without multiple contingency plans already in place. CM Punk entering this dynamic adds layers of complexity that make the whole situation feel like it could implode at any second. Punk isn't some naive newcomer who'll blindly follow anyone's lead, and he's made a career out of calling out phonies and exposing frauds. If Reigns tries to pull a fast one on him, Punk will see it coming from a mile away and likely strike first. The chemistry between these two is fascinating because they're both alphas who refuse to bow down to anyone, which means their partnership exists on extremely shaky ground. They might be working together now, but how long can two dominant personalities coexist before one decides the other has to go? The tension between Punk and Reigns goes deeper than most people realize because these are two men who view the world through completely different lenses. Punk built his legacy on being the anti-establishment rebel who spoke truth to power and refused to compromise his principles for anyone. Reigns constructed his empire by embracing the very power structures that Punk spent years fighting against, using them to his advantage and bending them to his will. These philosophical differences create friction that no amount of temporary alliance can fully smooth over. They're working together out of convenience and mutual benefit, not because they've suddenly discovered shared values or genuine friendship. That makes every interaction between them feel loaded with subtext and potential conflict. The Usos find themselves caught in the middle of this potential disaster, torn between their cousin's leadership and their own instincts about what's right. They've followed Reigns through his darkest moments and stood by him when others walked away, but even their patience has limits. There have been subtle signs of tension, small moments where you can see doubt creeping into their expressions when Reigns makes decisions without consulting them. They're warriors in their own right with their own legacy to protect, and at some point they might decide that preserving their dignity matters more than maintaining family unity. The cracks are starting to show, and once those fissures become visible, it's only a matter of time before the whole structure collapses. What makes the Usos' position particularly difficult is that they've invested years into this relationship with Reigns, sacrificing their own individual ambitions to serve the greater goal of family dominance. They've taken losses that hurt their personal records, they've made enemies they might not have made otherwise, and they've tied their professional destinies completely to the success or failure of the Tribal Chief's vision. Walking away now would mean admitting that all those sacrifices were for nothing, that they bet on the wrong horse and wasted precious years of their prime. That's a bitter pill to swallow, which is why they're likely to give Reigns the benefit of the doubt longer than logic would dictate. But there comes a point where even the most loyal soldiers have to face reality and make hard choices about their futures. Tonight's Raw appearance feels different because the stakes have never been higher and the pressure has never been more intense. Reigns knows that every word he speaks will be analyzed, every gesture will be scrutinized, and every decision will have consequences that ripple through the entire roster. He's walking into an environment where one wrong move could cost him everything he's worked to build, but that's also when he's at his most dangerous. The tribal chief thrives in high-pressure situations where lesser men would crumble, using his mind games and psychological warfare to stay 3 steps ahead of everyone else. He'll likely try to reassure both the Usos and CM Punk that they're all on the same page while simultaneously planting seeds of doubt about potential threats from outside their group. The way Reigns operates in these pressure cooker moments reveals the true depth of his strategic thinking. He doesn't just react to situations as they unfold, he anticipates them weeks or even months in advance and positions himself accordingly. When he speaks tonight, he'll be addressing multiple audiences simultaneously. There's the message he wants the Usos to hear, the message he wants CM Punk to internalize, the message he wants his enemies to fear, and the message he wants the broader wrestling world to believe. Juggling all these different narratives while maintaining a cohesive front requires extraordinary skill and mental agility. One slip-up, one moment where the mask falls and reveals too much of what's really going on inside his head, and everything could unravel instantly. The genius of Reigns' approach has always been his ability to make people question their own instincts and second-guess what they're seeing with their own eyes. He'll tell you the sky is green while you're staring at blue, and somehow make you wonder if you're the one who's wrong. This gaslighting technique has worked on countless opponents and allies alike, keeping them off balance and unable to mount effective resistance against his schemes. But there's a limit to how long anyone can maintain that level of manipulation before people catch on to the game. The question isn't whether Reigns will eventually betray someone, but rather who will be first and how devastating the fallout will be when it happens. CM Punk's presence adds an unpredictable element because he's dealt with manipulators throughout his entire career and developed a sixth sense for detecting dishonesty. He's been burned before by people he trusted, which has made him hyper-aware of red flags and warning signs that others might miss. If Reigns thinks he can run the same playbook on Punk that he's used on everyone else, he might be in for a rude awakening. Punk has never been afraid to burn bridges or blow up situations when he feels disrespected, and he won't hesitate to expose Reigns if he catches him being duplicitous. The collision course between these two feels inevitable, and when it finally happens, the impact will be felt throughout the entire wrestling landscape. The psychological warfare between Punk and Reigns has been subtle but constant, with each man testing the other's boundaries and looking for weaknesses to exploit. Punk drops comments during interviews that could be interpreted multiple ways, planting seeds of doubt while maintaining plausible deniability. Reigns responds with his own carefully crafted statements that sound supportive on the surface but carry undertones of threat and dominance. It's like watching two master chess players study the board, each knowing that the first person to make a genuine mistake will pay dearly for it. The tension builds with every interaction, every shared glance, every moment they stand side by side while clearly thinking very different thoughts about where this partnership is ultimately headed. The Usos represent the emotional core of this storyline because their relationship with Reigns goes beyond professional wrestling into deeply personal territory. They've sacrificed opportunities and taken risks for him because they believed in the family bond and the vision he promised them. But belief can only carry you so far when actions don't match words, and the Usos have been watching carefully as Reigns navigates these dangerous waters. There's a sense that they're waiting for confirmation of their worst fears, hoping to be proven wrong but preparing themselves for the possibility that their cousin might not be the man they thought he was. The heartbreak of that potential betrayal would cut deeper than any loss in the ring because it would represent the destruction of something they held sacred. The emotional investment that the Usos have made in this relationship is what makes their story so compelling to audiences. These aren't just business partners or casual acquaintances, these are men who share blood and history and memories that go back to childhood. They've been through family gatherings and personal struggles and all the complex dynamics that come with being part of the same lineage. That makes the stakes infinitely higher than they would be in a typical wrestling partnership because there's no clean break available if things go wrong. You can walk away from a tag team partner, but you can't walk away from family without carrying that weight for the rest of your life. The Usos know this, and it's why they're probably more terrified of Reigns' potential betrayal than anyone else in this situation. What happens tonight on Raw could set the course for the next several months of storylines and determine the trajectory of multiple careers. Reigns holds enormous power not just through his physical dominance but through his ability to shape narratives and control how stories unfold. He's become the central figure around which everything else revolves, which means his decisions create ripple effects that touch nearly everyone on the roster. If he chooses to maintain his current alliances, it could lead to an unstoppable force that dominates Raw for the foreseeable future. But if he decides that betrayal serves his purposes better, then we're looking at a war that will tear through divisions and create new rivalries that could last for years. The ripple effects of whatever happens tonight will extend far beyond just the people directly involved. Other superstars on the roster are watching this situation closely because they know it will affect their own opportunities and storylines. If Reigns and his allies stay united, it means everyone else is fighting for scraps and struggling to find space in a landscape dominated by one overwhelming faction. If the group implodes, it opens up possibilities and creates vacuums of power that ambitious wrestlers can rush to fill. The entire locker room has a vested interest in how this plays out, even if they're not directly involved in tonight's events. The audience is invested in this storyline because it taps into universal themes of trust, loyalty, and the corrupting influence of power. Everyone has experienced situations where they had to decide whether to believe someone's words or trust their own instincts about that person's true character. Reigns embodies that conflict perfectly, presenting himself as a leader worth following while simultaneously giving off signals that suggest darker motivations lurking beneath the surface. The tension comes from not knowing which version of him is real, or if perhaps both versions exist simultaneously within the same person. He might genuinely care about the Usos and respect CM Punk while also being willing to sacrifice them if circumstances demand it, which makes him all the more compelling as a character. The brilliance of this storyline is how it makes viewers complicit in the drama by forcing them to constantly reassess their own judgments. One week you might watch Reigns do something that seems genuinely noble and think maybe we've all been too harsh on him, maybe he really has changed and learned to value partnership over selfish ambition. Then the next week he'll do something that makes your skin crawl with its calculated cruelty, and you remember exactly why you never fully trusted him in the first place. This constant push and pull keeps audiences engaged and debating long after each episode ends, which is the ultimate goal of compelling television. The Raw appearance tonight will be must-see television because anything could happen and the consequences will be significant no matter which direction things go. Reigns might deliver a speech that temporarily smooths over tensions and keeps everyone united for another day. He could make a shocking move that catches everyone off guard and fundamentally changes the power structure of the entire brand. Or perhaps the most interesting possibility is that seeds of future betrayal get planted tonight without anyone fully realizing it until weeks or months down the line when they finally sprout into something destructive. That's the beauty of long-term storytelling in wrestling when it's done right, building slowly toward an inevitable conclusion while keeping audiences guessing about exactly how and when that conclusion will arrive. CM Punk's involvement means that verbal confrontations could be just as explosive as any physical action, because he's one of the few people who can match Reigns on the microphone. When these two talk, you listen, because they both understand how to craft promos that feel authentic and cut to the heart of what matters. If tensions boil over into a war of words tonight, it could produce some of the most talked about segments of the year and give fans exactly the kind of content they crave. The anticipation for potential verbal fireworks adds another layer of excitement to an already loaded situation, making it impossible to look away from what's about to unfold. The verbal sparring between these two men would be worth the price of admission alone because they represent different generations and philosophies of professional wrestling, each convinced their way is the right way. Punk would likely bring up Reigns' privileged position as part of a wrestling dynasty, questioning whether he's earned everything he has or simply inherited it through family connections. Reigns would counter by pointing out Punk's history of walking away when things got difficult, suggesting that for all his talk about principles, he's never had the stomach for the long game that championship runs require. These aren't generic insults, they're deeply personal attacks designed to expose vulnerabilities and weaknesses that cut to the core of each man's identity. The Usos will be watching everything closely, trying to read between the lines and figure out where they stand in the grand scheme of things. Their body language and reactions could tell us as much as anything that gets said explicitly, because sometimes what people don't say speaks louder than their words. If they start showing visible discomfort with Reigns' statements or decisions, that's a huge red flag that trouble is brewing beneath the surface. Conversely, if they seem confident and unified, it might mean that Reigns has successfully kept everyone on the same page for now. Either way, their presence serves as a barometer for how stable or unstable this whole arrangement actually is. The Raw audience will be electric tonight, feeding off the tension and uncertainty surrounding what Reigns might do. Live crowds have an instinct for big moments and they'll be ready to react to whatever transpires, whether that's cheering for unity or erupting when betrayal strikes. The energy in the arena will amplify everything that happens, making even small gestures feel significant and turning major developments into seismic events. Reigns feeds off that energy and uses it to enhance his performance, which means we're likely to get something special from him tonight regardless of what path he chooses. As the seconds tick down to his appearance, speculation runs wild about possible scenarios and outcomes. Will he embrace his allies and promise to lead them to glory? Will he plant subtle hints of future betrayal that only become clear in hindsight? Or will he shock everyone by turning on someone tonight in a moment that nobody sees coming? The uncertainty is what makes this so gripping, because with Reigns you truly never know what you're going to get. He's proven time and time again that he's willing to take risks and make bold choices that other performers might shy away from, which keeps his storylines fresh and audiences invested. Tonight's Raw represents a crucial chapter in this ongoing saga, one that could either stabilize the current situation or send everything spiraling into chaos. The tribal chief stands at a crossroads where every option comes with significant consequences and no choice is without risk. He's built an empire through cunning and ruthlessness, but maintaining that empire requires constant vigilance and the willingness to make difficult decisions. The Usos and CM Punk are valuable assets to him, but if they become liabilities or obstacles to his goals, we all know what he's capable of doing. The cold calculation behind his eyes suggests that sentiment won't stop him from doing whatever he believes necessary to protect his position. The weight of expectation surrounding this appearance is enormous because fans have been building toward this moment for weeks, analyzing every interaction and debating every possibility. Social media has been ablaze with theories about what might happen, with some people convinced betrayal is imminent while others believe Reigns will surprise everyone by actually proving himself worthy of the trust being placed in him. The discourse around this storyline has reached fever pitch levels, which puts additional pressure on everyone involved to deliver something that lives up to the hype. That pressure can either crush performers or elevate them to new heights, and based on everything we know about Roman Reigns, he's the type who rises to the occasion when the spotlight burns brightest. Make sure you're tuned into Raw tonight because this is the kind of television that defines eras and creates moments that fans talk about for years to come. Roman Reigns is about to take center stage and whatever he does will reverberate through wrestling for a long time afterward. The alliances he's built could either become the foundation of an unstoppable dynasty or the rubble of a catastrophic collapse. CM Punk and the Usos stand at the precipice alongside him, their fates intertwined with his decisions in ways they might not fully comprehend yet. Don't miss it, and don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on all the latest developments as this story continues to unfold.